Welcome to What's Next in Emergency Management with Michael Prasad of the Center for Emergency Management Intelligence Research. This podcast highlights advocacy, research, academics, and more. I'm Christopher, an AI-generated voice used for interludes and breaks. Please note that Michael is an Amazon affiliate and may be compensated for referrals and show notes, links, and content in this podcast.
Hi folks, it's Michael Prasad from the Center for Emergency Management Intelligence Research. And here is my December 2025 update for the emergency management-related advocacy, research, and writing work that I've done last month and prior, as well as a peek into what I'll be doing this month and into the near future. As I mentioned in last month's episode, I've kicked off some of the background articles on both the systemic and potentially chronic planned incidents, which are public safety power shutoffs, or PSPS. This set of posts is primarily focused toward advocacy for U.S. residents of California and the other U.S. states who have implemented PSPS, on behalf of those who may be disabled and/or who have access and functional needs which may be adversely impacted by these PSPS incidents. I can't really call them events because they're not really fun or really positive to anybody in the long run. Benjamin Kahn brought this problem statement to my attention. He and I have written a few pieces focused on disability integration and the loss of capabilities which have occurred nationally in 2025. That work can be found over at the Emergency Management Network Substack and is also the focus of the category of posts I have at the CEMIR Substack entitled IDEA Equals Belonging. And yes, IDEA is an acronym for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility. The subject of reducing or shifting responsibilities for IDEA from both government and the private sector to the individual, especially when it comes to scheduled incidents such as PSPS ones, should set off alarms for every professional emergency manager. This series will be a number of posts and articles, not just one, and I will need to conduct more interviews and do some more research on this. In the show notes will be links to that work so far, and please also know that I'm planning this writing in collaboration with Matt Green over at his State of Disaster Substack. Look for the links on those posts in the show notes as well. And before I forget, I am once again teaching a 50-hour course online around my book called Emergency Management Threats and Hazards Water. The course fee is $350 US and includes a license for the ebook version of the textbook, which runs about $88 at this point. That course runs live on Monday nights Eastern Time from February 9th through May 25th of 2026. You can learn more details from a link I'll put in the show notes as well. My writing in November of this year was much less than it was in October. No biggie as far as I'm concerned. I probably keyboard surfed way too much that month anyway. This month I wrote my opinion about Florida's alligator Alcatraz over at the Emergency Management Network Substack. Full transparency, this is my opinion only and does not necessarily represent the official position of any of the organizations I'm affiliated with. And over at the Emergency Management Network Substack as well, Todd DeVoe and I wrapped up our chronic or systemic disaster essay series. Both links will be in the show notes. At the CEMIR Substack for paid subscribers, I posted some background material on public safety power shutoffs and the role of Centers for Independent Living as it relates to disaster readiness or resiliency. And my counterpoint editorial on professionalism in emergency management entitled Expanding on the Concept of Emergency Management Professionalization was finally published at the Journal of Emergency Management. However, unlike the original editorial written by Dr. Jennifer Carlson, which is open source, so far my rebuttal has been paywalled. At Medium, in November of 2025, I only had one story, and it was paywalled for subscribers to that platform. I'm feeling generous this holiday season, so in the show notes I'll include a link for a free look at that piece. Plus, this story started out as a major finger pointing at politicians who purposely starved children for political gain during the U.S. federal government shutdown, but ends up, well, pointing the finger at politicians who purposely starve children for political gain anytime. And if you're a certified emergency manager and you like to write, I invite you to consider subscribing to Medium and writing for a new online publication I have there called The Lipper. It's all about emergency management, written by professional emergency managers. You can post as paywalled stories and generate your own revenue, as is true for any other Medium publication. Drop me an email at the contact info at the show notes if you're qualified and interested. As for what I'm going to be writing about in December of 2025, besides the PSPS issues in the northeastern states, including California, I think I'll work on cleaning up some articles I started but never completed in 2025. Included in this will be more thoughts on the idea, and by the way, certainly not mine, to add back yesteryear's civil defense mission for today's local emergency managers. I've already written 2 pieces on my thoughts, and I'll reiterate that while I do not think this is necessarily an undesirable concept, just that it belongs with Homeland Security and not emergency management. As I personally spend more time gaining and sharing knowledge about international humanitarian laws, the more I become aware of lines that which should not be crossed by civilians in a civilized society. And over at the CEMIR, we continue to send out alerts, training opportunities, emergency management intelligence systems we find, and more in our monthly blog. You can subscribe for free via the link in the show notes. My consulting firm Barton Do Not will be publishing its annual reading list in January, at least 1 book a month if you can keep up. We've been doing these lists since 2020, and now the entire WordPress site, blog.bartondonot.com, is moving to a membership-based paradigm. In other words, we tried charging on an a la carte basis for templates and other materials. That didn't work. We tried giving almost everything away for free, and also, that didn't work either. All we ended up doing was getting foreign bots to try to sign up, usually about once a day, clogging up our system. So now we're going to go with a simple annual subscription. Pay $12 once a year and get access to everything as a member. Look for more details on this change in January of 2026. Finally, in November of 2025, I was at the International Association of Emergency Managers USA National Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, between the 15th and the 20th. Besides doing some IAEM-USA Regional 2 presidential duties, I also had a poster presentation, which was approved for the non-competitive section. It was on the pediatric feeding problem statement that I've been working on, collaborating with disaster health researcher Jennifer Hope Russell. I'll put the links in the show notes for the poster, the abstract, and a somewhat sounding cynical AI voice-generated description of that poster. As for 2026, I've been approved to do a breakout session on the same subject, that is, disaster pediatric feeding changes in the United States, at the New Jersey Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster Conference, which will be held on Tuesday, May 12th in Somerset, New Jersey. I'll put the details in the show notes as well. Look for my in-person tour schedule at www.michaelprasad.com. Yes, and that link will be in the show notes as well, too. And for that Journal of Emergency Management article, that rebuttal letter that I wrote, Dr. Jennifer Carlson has actually written a rebuttal letter countering mine. So right now I'm in negotiations to write one more letter, which will cap our discussion series on the questions of licensing versus certification in the professionalization of emergency management and emergency managers. So more on that hopefully in the next month's podcast. As I write this, I'm getting ready to watch and keenly pay attention to the upcoming FEMA Review Council's probable last meeting, and the report which is slated to come out soon thereafter. What happens next at the federal level of emergency management in the United States is very much critical to the long-term state of our union. The ongoing capabilities of our nation to sustain ourselves in the most troubling times we will undoubtedly encounter, large-scale disasters beyond the capabilities and capacities of any single state, local government, territorial, tribal nation, will be the topic of the year for me in 2026. Season's greetings and Happy New Year to all.
This has been What's Next in Emergency Management with Michael Prasad. Mike typed in for me to say the following. Please subscribe, like, or whatever it is you do for this podcast. Thank you for listening.